Hey there, outcasts, rejects, and the ones they tried to silence. Yeah, I'm talking to you, the one who's been playing it nice, sitting quiet, taking hit after hit. But not anymore. 'Cause today, you're done playing small. You're done. You've had enough, haven't you? Enough of biting your tongue until it bleeds. Enough of dimming your light just so theirs wouldn't flicker out. Enough of shrinking your power, hiding your fire, pretending you're not a threat, just to make the sheep feel safe. But let's be honest, you were never one of them, were you? You were born with teeth, with claws, with chaos in your bloodstream, and the world begged you to be reasonable, to stay in line, to color between their lifeless little lines and call it art, to sit at the kiddie table while mediocrity feasts at the head. But the game's changed now, hasn't it? Because now you're done. Done letting them define you. Done apologizing for breathing fire in a world that only hands out buckets of water. Done keeping your genius locked in a basement while cowards parade their noise as wisdom. You've had enough. Enough of their fake smiles, their backhanded compliments, their "you're just too much" and "maybe tone it down." They feared your power, so they tried to bury it, mock it, choke it. But guess what? You're the weed that grew through concrete. You're the explosion that silence couldn't contain. You're the storm that just woke up. And baby, they won't believe what's coming next. You want to know why they're so afraid of you? Because deep down, they know. They know. If you ever stopped playing small, you'd rewrite the rules. You'd walk in the room and change its temperature. You'd speak, and the walls would listen. You'd exist, and the world would finally have to reckon with what it tried to erase. And now they don't get to mute you. Now they don't get to contain you, because you're no longer asking for permission. You're taking the damn throne. This isn't about revenge. This is about resurgence. About becoming what you always were before they tried to cage you. You see, the version of you that they praised, that was just your camouflage. But this is the real you, the one that doesn't blink, the one that doesn't break, the one that watched the world burn and laughed, then lit a match of their own. You're not just done playing small, you're done playing by their rules, done dancing for scraps like some obedient pet. You're the wolf, you're the lion, you're the goddamn chaos they tried to domesticate, and guess what? You're off the leash now. You're not going back to silence. You're not going back to safe. You're not going back to pretending you're not monumental. Because this time, you're not here to fit in. You're here to dominate. And they won't believe it. They won't believe how fast you rise, how loud you become, how much power you carry when you finally stop hiding. But belief was never the point. Reality is. And reality is about to get real dark. Real fast. They made the mistake of thinking you'd stay caged. They made the mistake of thinking you'd forget. But you remember everything, every insult, every doubt, every door slammed in your face, every time they called you too intense, too weird, too much. Well, now you're exactly that. Too much to ignore, too much to break, too much to stop. You're the quiet before the collapse. You're the fuse that's already lit. You're the reckoning they never saw coming. And the best part, you're just getting started, and that's the part that'll haunt them. Because they thought this fire, this fury, was the peak. They thought this was your limit. They thought this version of you, the one they now can't shut up, can't shove aside, can't manipulate anymore, was the end of your transformation. But no, this is just the crack in the dam, the real flood's still coming. You see, when someone spends their life caged, shackled, humiliated. They don't rise up to get even. They rise up to take everything and you. You're not here to prove anything anymore. You're not here to explain yourself to people who never even tried to understand. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be remembered. Because now you've realized something deadly, that the version of you they were comfortable with was the slowest, smallest, most diluted version of your potential. And still, you made them uncomfortable. You made them nervous. So imagine what happens now. Now that you're done dumbing yourself down. Now that you're done swallowing rage like poison and smiling for their approval. Now that the gloves are off, and the monster they tried to bury just stood up, smiling. They won't believe it. No. They won't believe the things you'll build, the things you'll destroy, the noise you'll make in a world that taught you to whisper. You are everything they feared you'd become, and worse. You're not afraid to show it. You're done playing small. You're done trying to shrink your ambition so it fits inside their box of mediocrity. You're done editing your emotions just so their fragile little egos don't get bruised. This is your voice, unfiltered. This is your rage, unchained. This is your brilliance, unapologetic. And now it's their turn to shrink, to doubt, to stumble over their words as they scramble to adjust to the power you always had. They'll look at you and say, "Who is this?" But deep down, they'll know. They'll recognize the fire they tried to stomp out, the spark they mocked, the potential they ignored, the one they said was too unstable, too intense, too crazy. Well, guess what? You leaned into the crazy. You kissed the chaos on the lips. And now you walk like someone who's not waiting for destiny to hand them anything. You take it. Every stage, every spotlight, every seat at the table they never wanted to offer you. You rip it out of their hands and sit there like you built the damn room, because you did. You built yourself out of scars, out of fury, out of every damn no they shoved in your face. And now you're the one they watch. Now you're the one they whisper about. Now you are the blueprint, and they're scrambling just to keep up. But they can't, because you're not walking anymore. You're ascending, and they won't believe this version of you because they were never meant to. They were meant to lose you, meant to witness what happens when someone who's been underestimated their whole life decides they're done begging for respect and starts taking it. Go on then. Be loud. Be unstoppable. Be too damn much for them to handle. Because you've already wasted enough time trying to fit in. And now it's your world. And they're just lucky you don't burn it all down. Because let's be honest, you could. You've held the matches for years. You know exactly where the cracks are, where the lies live, where their thrones are built on rotting wood and empty words. You've seen behind the curtain. You know just how fragile their power really is. But you didn't burn it all down, not because you couldn't, but because you chose something worse. You chose to rise, to outgrow, to eclipse every single one of them without ever throwing a punch. See, destruction is easy, but evolution, that's war, and you've been fighting it in silence, in shadows, in rooms where no one clapped and no one cared. But you kept going. You kept bleeding for a future only you could see. That's what they don't get. That's why they'll never understand you. They think your power is new. They think this energy came out of nowhere. They think this storm just suddenly rolled in. But they didn't see the pressure building. They didn't see the nights you sat with your rage like an old friend, the moments you questioned your worth, questioned your sanity, questioned if it was even worth it. But still moved forward, still fought, still screamed inside your own mind while smiling on the outside. Now that storm has a name. Now that pressure is a force. Now that silence has turned into the loudest thing in the room. And it's you. You're not just walking into rooms anymore. You're shifting gravity. You're not asking if you're good enough. You're watching them squirm, wondering if they can survive in your presence. And they can't. Because the air's too heavy now. Because the version of you that played it safe, that smiled through disrespect, that waited their turn. That version is dead, buried, gone without a funeral. What's left is someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink. What's left is someone who knows exactly what they are. A threat, a weapon, a walking contradiction they'll never decode. You're what happens when someone's been underestimated for too long and finally says, "No more. No more pretending, no more waiting, no more dimming your light just to soothe their shadows. From now on, you don't lower your voice. You let it echo. You let it rattle their bones. You let it remind them why they tried to silence you in the first place. Because even when you were quiet, you were never small. Even when you were bleeding, you were still the sharpest thing in the room. Even when you were afraid, you were dangerous. But now you're fearless. Now you're full volume. Now you're the nightmare they tried to avoid by pretending you were harmless. Well, guess what? You're not harmless. You're a problem. And not the kind they can solve. The kind that spreads. The kind that exposes. The kind that changes everything. They won't believe this version of you? Good. Let them choke on their doubt. Let them sit there in stunned silence while you rise, louder than ever. You didn't come this far to be polite. You didn't endure all that pain just to make people comfortable. You came to make a mark, to leave scorch marks on every room you enter, to be the lesson they never saw coming. And you're done playing small. So now you move different. Not out of arrogance, no. Out of clarity, out of knowing. Knowing that your value doesn't shrink just because others can't see it. Knowing that your presence doesn't need permission. Knowing that you were never meant to blend in. You're not part of the furniture anymore. You're not the afterthought, the footnote, the fallback. You are the headline, the force, the damn main event. And the most terrifying part for them, you stopped caring what they think. Because when someone who once bent over backwards to be accepted finally says, "To hell with it," they become invincible. You don't chase validation anymore. You don't perform for crumbs. You don't explain your fire to people who drown in puddles. You walk, unapologetic, unfiltered. And if the room can't handle it, then the room wasn't meant to hold you in the first place. They can call it ego. They can call it delusion. But what it really is liberation. You finally realized the cage was never locked. You just believed their lies long enough to forget your own wings. But now your wings are spreading, and the wind's already changing. The same people who overlooked you, dismissed you, laughed behind your back. They're watching now, eyes wide, mouths shut. Because they don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need them anymore. You don't need their invitations. You make your own table. You don't need their recognition. You are the standard. You don't need their love. Because you love the warrior you became in the war they never saw. And that's the cruel poetry of it, isn't it? They tried to break you, and in doing so, they built you. They tried to humiliate you, and in doing so, they handed you the blueprint to your empire. They tried to erase you, and now they can't blink without seeing your name burned into the sky Because you're not just done playing small, you're done playing nice. You've carried others. You've stayed quiet out of respect. You've played peacemaker while everyone else got to be loud, rude, reckless, selfish. Now it's your turn, not to be reckless, but to be ruthless. Ruthless with your boundaries, ruthless with your time, ruthless with your energy. Because every second you spent playing small was a second you denied the world something unreal. And you've got no more seconds left to waste. You're not just rising, you're ascending, with scars as armor, with rage as rocket fuel, with purpose as your compass and pain as your history book. And now they get to watch the story unfold. The story where the one they counted out becomes the one they count on. The story where the ghost they tried to bury becomes the shadow hanging over everything they do. The story where you step onto the battlefield, bloodied but grinning, and say, "Let's try this again. But this time, I'm not holding back." Because now it's not about survival. It's not about scraping by, fitting in, getting approval like some starving dog waiting for scraps. It's about destruction, not of others, of the weak version of you they kept alive. That second-guessing, overthinking, self-editing shell of a person who smiled when they wanted to scream, stayed when they wanted to leave, whispered when they should have roared. You're not just stepping into power, you're detonating into it. And here's the catch. You're not angry anymore. You're clear. Anger fades. Clarity, that stays. It sharpens your teeth. It steadies your hand. It makes you unstoppable. Now every room you walk into bends to your presence. Not because you're loud, but because your silence carries weight. Because you know who you are, and you know what you're not. You're not the fallback plan. You're not the second choice. You're not the warm-up act before the main show. You are the damn show. And they're late to realize it. They'll replay every moment they made you feel small, every joke, every silence, every time they rolled their eyes when you spoke with passion. And now they'll choke on that memory while you keep rising. Because this isn't a comeback. It's a reckoning, a violent, undeniable, world-shaking reminder that the person they tried to suppress is now the one holding the blueprint and the blowtorch. And what comes next? Oh, they're not ready. They're not ready for the version of you that doesn't hesitate, that doesn't explain, that doesn't soften the truth to make it palatable. They're not ready for the one who takes up space without guilt, who says no without flinching, who says yes to themselves without compromise. You are the storm they thought would pass. But you didn't pass. You grew teeth. You grew wings. You became a force so real, so raw, so untouchable. They're still trying to understand how they didn't see it coming. But that's the thing. They never see it coming when the quiet ones finally decide they're done bleeding for people who never deserved them. You were their best-kept secret. Now you're their worst-kept regret. And all those years they spent underestimating you, they were your training camp, your forge, your silent sharpening. And now you're here to collect, not revenge. Respect, on your terms, on your timing, on a level they couldn't even pronounce. You don't knock on doors anymore. You kick them off the hinges and repaint the walls. You don't wait for opportunity. You command it because you've had enough. You're done playing small. And now they watch, eyes wide, mouth shut, hearts racing, because something's coming, something they can't predict, something they'll never forget. You, the unshakable, the unbreakable, the storm wrapped in skin they never learned how to read. You're the one who was too much, too loud, too intense, too real. And now all that too much It's exactly what sets you apart. You're not just walking into your power. You're dragging every lie they ever told about you into the light and letting it burn. They said you were unstable. No. You were evolving. They said you were emotional. No. You were connected. They said you were impossible to work with. No. You refused to work beneath your worth. And now you're done translating your soul into a language they can digest. If they don't get it, they don't deserve it. If they can't handle you, they were never meant to stand beside you. You're not here to be handled. You're here to be felt, to be undeniable, uncontainable, unapologetically you, in every decibel, every breath, every step. And now you're not just rising, you're ripping through ceilings, you're cracking foundations, you're making people reconsider the roles they played in your silence. You've become their mirror, and they hate it, because when they see you now, they don't just see your strength. They see everything they ran from, everything they lacked the courage to face, everything they tried to kill in you, only to watch it come back louder, bigger, brighter, and wrapped in vengeance. But this isn't about them anymore. It never was. This is about you. Looking in the mirror and finally seeing the truth. You were never broken. You were compressed, like a spring wound so tight, so long, that the moment it snapped back, it didn't just return to form. It launched. And now you're airborne, above the noise, above the doubt, above the limits they drilled into your head when you were too young to fight back. But you're not young and helpless anymore. You're brutal and focused. You're not begging. You're not asking. You're taking. Your light isn't flickering. It's blinding. And the ones who once told you to dim it, now they need sunglasses just to stand in your shadow. This is the era of you unleashed, you unchained, you unsilenced. No scripts, no masks, no more toning it down. They don't get to enjoy the fireworks if they couldn't handle the flame. They don't get a front row seat after mocking your rehearsal. You've had enough. You're done playing small. And now you rewrite the ending. With fire, with fury, with that grin that says, "Told you I wasn't done." Because this isn't the end. This is where you stop reacting and start reigning. Welcome to the part where you take it all. The stage, yours. The spotlight, yours. The silence in the room when you enter, that's yours too. Because now, the game's flipped. And they know it. You're not clawing your way to the top anymore. You are the top. And they're scrambling to understand how the same person they once overlooked is now the one they answer to. No more proving, no more seeking, no more explaining your magic to people who can't even see color. This is domination, not loud, not messy, precise, cold, clean. You're not fighting for scraps. You're designing the feast. You're not in their little hierarchy. You're building empires with your name carved into the foundation. You move different now, not because you're trying to be above them, but because they're no longer even in the same galaxy. And yeah, they'll still talk. They'll still whisper your name like a warning, like a ghost story they tell themselves at night to explain why their world suddenly feels smaller. But that's not your problem. You're not here for them. You're here for every version of you that stayed silent when you wanted to scream. For every night you swallowed your own truth just to keep the peace. For every moment you doubted yourself while the world fed you poison in praise. Not anymore. Now you speak and the air shifts. Now you walk and the ground answers. Now you exist and the world takes notes. Because this isn't about attention. It's about impact. You're not trending. You're timeless. You're not a phase. You're a phenomenon. You're not the echo. You're the voice everyone was too afraid to hear. Until now. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point all along. to break, to bleed, to be buried in silence, so you could rise in thunder.